it's quite striking, isn't it, to see the president, with all his bluster, but landing in Scotland and saying it's great to be home, the home of my mother.
You want an honest answer? Donald Trump wanted a photo opportunity somewhere where he's not facing civil or criminal charges. Apart from visiting his golf courses, which he's doing this week in Scotland and Ireland, and of course the belated state visit in 2019, he really hasn't stepped foot in the UK most of his adult life. So it makes for a good soundbite, but he really has had very little to do with the United Kingdom. Again, apart from a round of golf before he was president, and even now after he stepped away from the White House for the time being.
Is he even any good at golf, Scott?
He claims he is, but there are accounts by golf partners who say he might have been a little bit liberal with his scorecard and might have nudged the ball with his foot once or twice. So as with anything else that you hear about Trump, you take the claims with a grain of salt. I don't think he's quite as much as the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il, who once said that he had a hole-in-one on every course and on every hole. But he is a little bit generous with what his golf game actually is.
Actually, yes, you're right. I remember those stories about, but a bit like sort of fisherman's tales. It was this big. We had all those stories of Donald Trump saying, "I've done X number of holes in one in my sporting career." But apart from the claim, obviously he has property in Scotland. He owns a golf course. He says that that's why he wants to go there. Do you think that he really does feel any affinity with Scotland or the UK at all?
Donald Trump likes attention. And fact is that he'll have an affinity with Scotland today because he's getting attention. And the headlines in most of the UK press, are the soundbite that he's glad to be here. And that's kind of positive with him compared with a lot of the press that he's gotten recently in the US and abroad. But the interesting thing about the golf courses is that they're not a successful business project. They might be a vanity project, but the course Turnberry, one of the most famous courses in the world, lost $15 million in 2022. The course the new course up near Aberdeen has lost $2 million in the course of the past 2 years. The course in Ireland, Doonbeck, makes a small profit. But Donald Trump has spent more than $350 million, lost more than $350 million on his golf courses in the abroad. So why does he do it? Does he do it for vanity, or does he do it because he's moving money around between his various businesses? It's as always, it's an interesting question as to what the purpose is beyond Trump's ego for actually having these golf resorts.
Well, I mean, those statistics are fascinating. What do you think the reason is? I mean, for instance, does Mar-a-Lago make money? Which bits of his business empire do make money?
Okay, the U.S. courses are in better shape than the overseas courses. But the fact of the matter is that overall, Trump's resorts don't make a great deal of money. I'm going to be very careful what I say here for legal reasons, and that is, at the very least, Trump is sinking money into projects such as the golf courses, especially those abroad, that really don't make any business sense in terms of actually getting a return on investment. Now, I must emphasize that there are reports, and there are just reports, that he uses this to move money around. There are question marks about who provided the finance for more than $400 million that he put into golf courses since 2006. Those questions are largely unanswered because, of course, until very recently, we couldn't get access to Donald Trump's tax and business records. I'm not saying the golf courses will wind up popping up in one of the numerous trials that Trump is facing, but they do pose question marks over this supposed business empire that the Donald has built.
Interesting. So you're implying that there's more than the eye can see when it comes to the amount of investment that Donald Trump chooses to put into a lot of these foreign-based golf courses, and that perhaps another story might come out about why he's chosen to sink so much money into those golf courses, which of course brings me back to the bigger story surrounding Donald Trump at the moment. I think many people on this side of the Atlantic have got confused about the comings and goings goings of Donald Trump and his legal situation and where these various 3 different cases are at the moment. Can you sort of, almost as a Donald Trump for dummies, bring us up to speed on where we are at the moment?
All right, so not a golf scorecard, but a legal scorecard.
Yeah.
First of all, late last year, the Trump Organization and one of its top executives were convicted over business malpractice. The Trump Organization was fined. The chief financial officer received a prison sentence, Alan Weisselberg. Earlier this year, your viewers may remember that Trump has been indicted now. So he directly faces prosecution over 34 counts, felony counts of manipulation of his business accounts that is related to the payoffs to the adult film actress Stormy Daniels, allegedly, because Trump did not want her saying anything before the election of 2016. There is a case in Georgia in which we will find out this summer if Trump or his inner circle have been indicted. That's over election interference, claims that they tried through manipulation and fraud to overturn Joe Biden's victory in that key state. And then there are the Justice Department investigations, which may or may not lead to indictments, not only about election interference, but whether Trump was involved in inciting violence in the Capitol attack of January 2021. Already, Trump is in serious legal trouble. If we have a further indictment, especially coming out of Georgia, and then possibly over the Capitol attack case, it's going to be interesting because this is unprecedented.
And yet, Scott, we've got all of that hanging over Donald Trump. He is still the clear favourite to be the Republican candidate. And the only thing that I've read over the last weekend about his nearest contender, Ron DeSantis, is that people are outraged by the fact that he apparently eats chocolate mousse with his hands.
Well, Ron DeSantis is not having a good time on this tour, including of the UK. I'm going to say 2 things, one of which is to build on what you're saying, which is squeaky wheel gets the grease. Donald Trump's very clever at being the squeaky wheel, and the media do tend to play along with it. And because he gets so much publicity, and because there are people who are embedded with him, come hell or high water, including some of my relatives, yes, he's leading the early polls for the Republican primaries. But we have almost a year till that first Republican primary, and it won't just be Ron DeSantis in the field. It will probably be the former Vice President Mike Pence. It's definitely the former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley. It could well be Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, the first significant Black candidate to run on the Republican side for the presidency. In other words, the show has just begun, to use Trump's language, where we are almost a year before the primaries and 17 months, 19 months before the general election. So I think it's best to get beneath the headlines and say, at the end of the day, is this going to be a man who stays the course, not in terms of spectacle, but actually being someone who is responsible and competent to earn a second term in the White House?
I liked your use of stay the course there. We came full circle back to the golf analogies. Scott, many, many thanks. I don't know if my heart was singing at the idea of you saying this is only just the beginning, or if my heart was dropping, but it was great to chat and have a catch up about all things the Donald, as you said. So many thanks to you. Now,